Hey, welcome to the Rick and Ralph Show. I'm Ralph. This is Rick. Hey, listen, today we're going to talk about something that people ask us all the time, and we thought this would be a good time to express ourselves right here on the Rick and Ralph Show. The question is, how did you guys get started? You know, what brought us here to this chair? You know, how did we actually begin, you know, in our trade of tinting windows? And, you know, what course did we take to actually get us right here? And in this show, that's what we're going to discuss. Okay, guys, welcome to the Rick and Ralph Show. I just want to point out that, you know, this show sort of takes a life of its own because we certainly depend on you guys to leave us comments below and let us know what topics that you would like us to discuss. There's not really anything off limits here. You know, Rick and I are both professional window tinters. He's currently in the business. I was formerly in the business. I still tint as a hobby and for friends and family. But, you know, we both have a history of business, and we can answer business-related questions. You know, how to get into the business. You know, what we're doing during our business that help us make money. You know, what about even techniques? We're in a studio. We have all different types of windows on cars, glass, roll-ups, back windows. You know, we can do demonstrations. We actually have cars that come into Rick's business. We have cars we can roll into our other studio that we can do, you know, live demonstrations. I'm sure Rick can think of some things, but, you know, we're a full boat show here. We like to cut up. We like to be silly. We like to be serious. There we go. But this is the Rick and Ralph Show. This is all about window tinting, mainly automotive window tinting. If you guys want to touch on flat glass, we can certainly help with that as well. And but on this episode, you know, we want to start out by, you know, letting you guys know this is our first YouTube production. We may be able to post this video in other places, but this is a pre-recorded show. And we're waiting for feedback and comments to help us with other shows that you guys may want to see. Now, on this show, we certainly want to answer some basic questions that we frequently are asked. And those questions are the question is, you know, how did you guys get started? How did you get in the business? You know, elaborate on that a little bit. And then, you know, what did we do that brought us here in front of this camera? And that's what we're going to touch on in this show today. So I'm going to let Rick start off, you know, simply by saying, hey, man, how did you get in the business? You know, we're gonna sort of break our story down into some simple, you know, parts and kind of work through it. And I'm gonna let Rick start off with that.
I'm gonna lean back a little bit. Ralph, I appreciate that. I don't always talk as much on here, but if you're gonna ask me how did I get into the film business, we've got to go back slightly before I got into the film business. You know, I went through high school, went and joined the Marine Corps. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I did not want to work for anybody else at that point. After you're getting hollered at and yelled at, and I'm not saying it was bad, I'm just simply saying what my thing was, but I decided I did not want to work for anybody else. I wanted to start my own business of some type. Well, I was still very young. I didn't really know a lot, so there wasn't much that I could start off a business from. So what I did know how to do when you're young and you got a car, you keep it clean. So I already knew how to keep my car clean, so I figured, hey, maybe I can make money keeping other people's vehicles clean. So I started doing detailing. I did that for a while. I made a trip down to Florida on we'll call it a semi-vacation, and I seen a guy tinting windows. And he got the job done quicker than I could detail a vehicle, and he got paid more. So a little light bulb went off in my head and says, man, I can be more efficient at making money by tinting windows. So without ever having tinted a window in my life before, probably had never tinted one at that point. I went and bought $1,000 worth of window film and forgot to buy tools, so I had to buy tools after that. But I pretty much seen somebody tinting windows they were making better money, or at least in my eyes, I thought they were making better money than me. And then I decided to get into it, and that's how I got started.
About what year was that?
That was around 99. Around 99.
About how old would you have been in that time period?
Early 20s.
Okay.
I was in my early 20s. I don't even want to dare to give an exact number because I'm not 100% certain.
I know you got more to add to your story, but I don't want to hog the camera here. But now I want to sort of, this is an opportunity.
How'd you get into it?
Your story is almost the same as mine. It seems like we both had an entrepreneurial spirit. I had been, employed at other small hourly minimum wage jobs. I think I worked at Kroger, and I've scooped ice cream at Baskin Robbins, and I've worked at convenience stores. And I'll be honest with you, that never really worked well for me. I was a bad employee. I'm like you. I started cleaning. I had an interest in keeping my car clean when I was 16. I bought car cleaning chemicals. I thought about my own self first, keeping my car clean. Then I thought, I really enjoy this. Working around cars is cool. So I started looking for other people to let me clean their car. I even asked my parents to help me with their friends and neighborhood, but I always kind of kept myself busy cleaning cars. And, again, I'm going to merge into what's happening here. I met a guy who could tint windows, and, it really started because I wanted somebody to tint my windows, and I approached the gentleman, and I started looking at what he was doing, and I became really interested in it. But I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have no money. I was still a kid. We're talking 1987 here. We're talking, I'm 17 years old, and most 17-year-olds are broke.
Yeah.
So I got a buddy of mine, and he had a 1979 Riviera. I had a 1987 Nissan Pulsar. And we found some window film at Otasco. Now I know what it was now, but I didn't know what it was then. It was like the oil change sticker material. It was tint, but it had no adhesive on it. And we bought.
Was it that static clean?
It was a static type clean.
Man, that thick, real thick.
Yes,
stuff.
we bought that, and we tried our best to install it with our. Now we didn't have YouTube. No YouTube here, okay? We had nobody to ask. The local tinters our tinter was not going to discuss with me how to put it on. That was a trade secret.
For the record, I did not have YouTube neither. To add a little detail to my part of it is, I said I went and bought $1,000 worth of film. At the time, I did not realize that UPS existed. I knew it existed, but I didn't realize it could help me. So instead of just calling and ordering film and waiting on it to get to me, I was so anxious about getting this film in my hand. My car was broke down. No, actually it wasn't broke down, it was getting painted, I'm sorry. I had a little lowrider, back then I loved my little lowrider. I had a little hard body, it was in the shop getting painted. I wanted to get my hands on some film, and I couldn't wait. And I was living close to Tampa, Florida at the time, and I found a place in Miami to get window film. And so I literally called and ordered the film, and I said, no, I'm gonna come down and meet you, because at the time I was like, I wanna meet who I'm buying this from. That was my excuse to go down there. So my cousin, I literally paid my cousin to chauffeur me from Tampa to Miami and back to pick up some window film. Turns out it wasn't even that great of a film, but that was the first window film purchase I made. It was about $1,000, and I paid my cousin to take me there to pick it up and come back.
Well, my friend and I went to Otasco, bought the material that was static clean. We pulled our cars in the driveway at my friend's house. We sort of put them side by side, and I let my friend actually lead. I don't know why. He was just more aggressive about, give me that, give me that. We had a razor blade. We had some soapy solution. I don't remember how we made it. And, like a driver's license with a paper towel, and that's about it. And I don't remember the details, but we were, I know my car didn't have a frame around it, the Pulsar. So we'd open the door, and we would put it on there. Now we had seen a professional do it, so we knew to kind of cut the film out from the outside, but we didn't quite get it. I don't know. I missed the steps, you know, about how to do it. But you know, it's like we kind of rough cut it. We put it on, and then we would squeegee it out, you know, with the driver's license. And I remember, you know, taking that driver's license and starting, you know, and like just using the straight edge and then cutting some more, and probably had, you know, the gap, you know, around the window. But it's probably pretty decent. But it was a struggle. And then, you know, it looked good at first, but then after several days, it would start kind of rolling off the glass. And
this was the static clean stuff.
This was the static clean stuff. I just know that, man, me and my friend, we tried. He had the same problem. Our cars did not look that great. We thought they looked okay, you know, but we knew something wasn't right. And that's when I finally just, you know, ponied up, and I called the local window tender, and he came out and did a job mobile for us, and I paid more attention. You know, but I know on that little Pulsar back window, which everybody would do with a 20-inch roll in one piece, he did it in 2 strips. He would show up to the job site with already pre-cut strips for any back window. I think they were like 4 or 5 inches, and he would just put them on there and overlap them. You know, but on my window, I just needed 2 of his strips, I guess. The window was so small. And by the way, the tint that he was using, we noticed, hey, this film's got some glue on the back of it, you know. Hadn't seen that before. And it was more clear because that static clean stuff was like kind of blurry looking through it. You know, this stuff was,
fall off.
Yeah, this stuff was like, wow, this stuff's got glue on it and it's clear, you know. So we watched how he did it. Anyway, I got to like making friends with him, and he started asking me if he could come over to my parents' garage and do some side jobs because he didn't have a place. And we were conveniently located in town. So we became more friends, and I started paying more attention. I kept cleaning cars. And then all of a sudden, he told me one day he had to leave Carrollton. He had finished school. He was going to college in my town, and he had to go back to his home. And I finally just got up enough courage and said, hey, man, will you sort of teach me some of your tricks and tell me where to order the film? I didn't know where to order the film. I didn't know where to get the tools. And so he gave me the phone number to the distributor out of Atlanta, told me who to ask for, and my story matches yours. I got a loan from my parents. I think it was around $600, probably like $1,000 because I'm in '87. You're in the '90s.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Late '90s.
Late '90s. I'm in the late '80s, '87, and again, our story started to merge because I finally got that, you know, those 2 or 3 crucial rolls of film. I got the tools, and I just went out under the oak tree and just started trying. I mean, and I just got a few pointers and just kept getting better, you know.
I have one advantage over you.
Even my grandmother used to help me hold the tent.
Now, Ralph says he basically needed to hunt down where to buy film from, and he had a window tinner at the time that window tinner honestly doesn't sound like he's very good by today's standards. So, and the same with me, you know, who I learned from, they weren't necessarily good by today's standards, but that's where we learned. The one benefit that I think I had over you was I didn't have to hunt for a place to buy film except the first time. After that, I stuck a sign up by the side of the road. I rented one of my they were related to me, some kind of a cousin. I don't know if it was a great uncle cuz. I don't know how that goes after it gets far. But I put a sign up and says I do window tinting out in front of the property. And lo and behold, before I ran out of the film from my first purchase, I had a sales rep stop by my shop to sell me film. And it turned out to be a really great film, actually. Turned out to be a really good.
I was doing more mobile work, and I was working out of my parents' garage, and all I had was word of mouth. I never had any other sales reps other than the one I had met through the phone number, and you know, I was building up a business through word of mouth. So my operation was slow. I was having a horrible time with cash flow. You know, I would borrow money from my parents to buy window film, then I would tint cars sporadically. And then the money I made off the cars as a 17-year-old, I would go spend it. And then when I ran out of money, I needed more film, I would go back to my parents and try to ask them to borrow more money. And I remember my dad explained to me, he said, son, you can't keep living off my cash flow. You're gonna have to learn how to manage your money. You're gonna have to learn how to buy a roll of film, how to tint a car, how to pay your bills, you know, and then how to save so when you're ready to buy more film, you'll have the money. I'm like, interesting. I never thought about it like that. I thought I would just keep going back, you know, but that well dried up real fast.
When speaking of drying up, when there had to have been a time frame before I got the shop that I was, you know, trying to tint windows or doing it. I know there was plenty of times I was doing it at my house. I can remember a couple specific times. One thing I noticed though is once I put up a sign and had a location, the guys that were friendly with me that did window tinting, all of a sudden their attitude towards me changed. Now I went from being a friend to a competitor. So they wouldn't show me anything else, which luckily the town that I got started in, they were still doing back windows and multiple strips. They weren't, you know, splicing on the defroster line. It was just a strip, and however it overlapped was however it overlapped. So luckily there wasn't necessarily a whole lot that I could learn from them that I missed. But I knew that I could learn something from somebody else, because I remember the one window tinter in the town, and he says, oh, this window can't be done in one piece. It all has to be multiple pieces. And well, I knew right out of, you know, immediately that was not true. And I'm not saying that he was lying, but what I am saying is he should have said it slightly different. He should have said, I'm not capable of doing one piece, because a simple trip over to Tampa to a Walmart parking lot, and I seen plenty of these same vehicles in one piece. And in fact, they were beautiful. I seen some gorgeous tint jobs, and I knew I didn't have the capacity to do that good. I knew there was, even if I had a better relationship with some of these other window tinters, they didn't have the capacity to teach me what I had just seen in a parking lot. And so everybody in that little town that I was in, there was myself, and there was basically two major tinters and another minor tinter. We'll count myself as a minor tinter at the time. And none of them really were any better than some of the jobs I seen in the parking lot. And so from that point on, there was not YouTube, there was not the internet. There was phone books. You flip through a phone book and says where are the tint shops at. And so I started approaching tint shops that were not in my area, and I just started offering my time, you know, maybe 1 day, 2 days out of the week, and then the rest of the time I would try to tint windows on my own. And fast forward to now, I don't know, I've worked at least 30 different shops in some form or fashion, whether it be a short period of time, long period of time. But I also had to realize that there were better ways to tint, and I wanted to get to that level, because if I could only get to that level, I would have everybody in the town that I was in beat just on quality. They weren't doing one-piece back windows. They weren't very clean, and they were really high-priced. I mean, back then, they were getting $200 a car. And it was something I wouldn't even get paid for today. It's kind of weird how it worked out.
Well, I got a similar story, but we got to go back in time a little bit, back to 87, 88. You know, I'm in school. You know, I'm over here trying to, you know, graduated high school now. I moved into college. And you know, I don't have problems with competition. I'm 45 minutes west of Atlanta. I know of some tinters in the greater Atlanta area, but they're far and few between. And no real independent tint shops out at that time. Technically, there's always usually a tinter that's kind of moving around and going to different places. And typically, they were involved with the stereo shops, the 12-volt businesses. You know, there's always a stereo stereo businesses were more abundant back then. You know, we had a couple of businesses like that in the small town of Carrollton where I was.
Stereo shops back then were huge.
They were big.
Shops were big.
So I identified that stereo shops were the places that people would go to to inquire about automotive window tinting. Once I put that 2 and 2 together, I started approaching the local stereo shops, and I would say, listen, you know, I'm a window tinter. I would like to make an arrangement with you where you can maybe take the calls, make the appointments, and possibly even price the jobs. And here's my schedule, line them up for me. I'm gonna come this time, and I'm gonna tint these cars, and then we'll split this money somehow. You know, basically back then it seemed like a popular split was 60-40. I don't pay any rent, I don't pay any utilities. You know, whoever buys the tent gets 60%, and whoever doesn't buy the tent gets 40%. And again, cash flow changed. I mean, college student going in, I'd let the stereo shops buy the film now, they would stock it, and I would go in and tint the windows, and I would make 40%. They'd get 60, you know, and that was the arrangement. And that's how I started to manage my cash flow problem. You know, just depending on people to meet me in the parents' garage, you know, wasn't working. You know, you know, I had to go somewhere. I had to put myself in a traffic situation. You know, you know, to start a business back in the 80s, early 90s, you know, one had to get a brick and mortar location. You know, and the first thing you had to do to be on, you know, even remotely successful was to get a phone, get a yellow page ad, and you know, that was a commitment. That was a huge commitment. And if you were trying to go to school, it wasn't going to happen. You know, you had to have some money. And so for me to partner with the stereo shops who had the yellow page ad, they could put window tinting in their yellow page ad. You know, I found a way to bring myself into staying busy. And so there I would get better and better and better, and I would, you know, do this while I was going to college. But you know what? I was making a lot of money, but life wasn't always as gravy as you think, because what I was doing, I didn't realize it, is I was building a business up for another company, another person who owned the business, and they would be a known place to go get their windows tinted. Ralph and Pelt was not known. I was actually working for Audio Works or Audio this or Audio that, you know, and building their business up. And so once the business became established and they saw that I was making as much or more money than them, you know, they would typically, you know, do what humans do. They would
put their hand out.
They'd put their hand out and say, hey man, we want more. We want to change the split. You know, or maybe I got so busy, I would hire a helper. You know, I would train the helper to help me, and then once that helper became proficient, you know, they may make a deal with the stereo shop owner.
He was
next thing you know,
replacement and didn't know it.
I've been displaced, you know. So that's another issue that I had to learn over time is to maintain control. Maintain control of your business. And, you know, I was able to do that through cell phones and things like that. You know, the yellow page, you know, ads were no longer, you know, now we're moving up into the 90s and, you know, into the 2000, you know, year model, and, you know, things are starting to change, but I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I want to touch on one thing real quick. Again, back then we were bringing little strips to work, and we were just doing back windows in like 4 and 5 inch strips, you know, and then we were overlapping them. And one of the things that you did, how you wanted to make yourself different, you know, from everybody by doing the one-piece back windows. Well, before the one-piece back window, I had the same thoughts you did, except I thought, you know, why can't we splice on the lines? You know, and I came up with a way on my own. I didn't have anybody show me this. Why can't I overlap the tent onto itself and then cut on the line, remove the excess so the seam is right on the line? You know, and I would pride myself on my ability to splice on selective lines. And so when you stood back, it looked like one piece.
It's funny that you're interested, that you mentioned splicing.
Yeah.
We weren't very far off, actually. I remember the first vehicle I was able to get in one piece that I wasn't able to get before, and it was a Dodge Caravan. And so I was celebrating like Rocky, but prior to that, I had to learn splicing.
You're talking about that back window, right?
Yes, the back window on the Dodge Caravan. I always had to splice it. My first step to be ahead of my competitors, because they were just doing overlaps, my first step was to do exactly what you did, splice it on the defroster line.
Yeah.
Now, when I first attempted a splice, I tinted it, left the overlap, just like if you were doing just strips and not doing anything, and I would let it dry some, and then I would literally, on the inside of the window, take my knife and try to go across as slow and as nice as I could to the other side. Well, when I got to the end, I always had problems because I couldn't cut it because it was on the black, and then it would make my knife go dull, you know, and I probably scratched a couple windows back then too. So after that, I evolved from splicing on the inside to, I got a Volkswagen Beetle in one time. And I said, you know what, I was gonna have to be splicing like this with the daggum hatch up, and it just wasn't comfortable, and I knew I was gonna mess it up. So I said, why can't I just make the splice on the outside? And so that's what I started doing, and in fact, you seen me not too long ago do that on that window over there. And you were surprised.
I never spliced on the inside because when I first started trying it, and I was trying to do the inside, I would either cut the defroster line, or I'd come around like on those older, to us they're old now, because like a 1987 Honda Accord, you know, the back window would just wrap around. And so I would be doing real good on the inside until I'd get around that corner and boom, it would slip. Once you slip, you're done. You have to, you have to go back and start over.
You got to start completely over.
But we were both evolving in the way we were doing it so that we could have a leg up on our competition. You know, that's the way we were doing it. Now, the one-piece back window became known to me, like introduced to me in 1989. I'll go ahead and tell you, Bill Wines is the one who sent me a VCR tape, and I watched the VCR tape on various cars. One of the particular cars I remember was like a 1979 like Camaro or Trans Am, and they showed me the technique, you know, how it's done. It was a wet shrink. And so I started applying that and did some back windows in one piece, but mainly the first thing I did, honestly, was I went to the Dodge Stelts. The side windows were really curved. A lot of people were just doing those in two pieces. Imagine a side window done in two pieces. Not cool, but it was happening. And the Ford Probes, the back quarter windows, people were doing those in two pieces. With that technique, I first started tackling those cars like that.
That was the second body style probe, right, or the first one?
Probably.
You know, the first one was more squared off looking.
Probably the second one then. I don't know.
Yeah, the second one looked
little hatchback car.
It had more of a curve.
But I'm just saying that was the first thing I did. Then I went to some really like Nissan Sentras and stuff, back windows. Those are really easy, but those would be normally two pieces for me. But then I could do those in one. And then I went straight into the Honda Accords, and with the technique and figured it out. Now, by the way, that was wet shrinking. Dry shrinking didn't show up for years later. Honestly, that was a long gap between the wet shrink in one piece and the dry shrink. So that was my evolution of how that took place. Well, I actually want to kind of move along with my story because I can, kind of quit talking about so much of the details of, the tent and the splicing. Let's just kind of get to the fun part, okay? How did I get in this chair? I will say that after I was betrayed by business owners that I built their businesses up, I was able to, get out of college and then open up my own business. Okay, that was where things started to change. I not only just opened up my own business by renting a space, but I partnered with a really good friend that was very proficient in the 12-volt business. He was very, very good at it and was very successful at it in a nearby town. So we came together, we joined forces, and we rented a place and we did it right. We had a nice facility, nice place. We would feed off of each other and share the rent and utilities and things like that. But he brought in his 12-volt customers, I brought in my tent customers, and we both would grow from each other. That was pretty cool because all the places in town that betrayed me were now my competition. And most of them just went out of business. They, because they couldn't, get the guy that I trained how to clean to be the primary window tinter. It just never worked out. So anyway, that's kind of where my story went. And see, window tinting led me into some other things that helped me make money. I started selling pagers, and that's another story. But I had some capital to buy pagers, and that was really popular back in the 90s. And I also, toward the end of the 90s, was able to sell my tent business and because I'd gotten into some real estate, you know, buying houses. That's another story. And so kind of took a little bit of a break from window tinting and did some real estate stuff. And then, you know, that took sort of a downturn. And then, you know, I got back into tinting because, see, you always have something to fall back on once you learn to trade. It's not only a curse because all your friends and family want you to tint for free, but, you know, you can always go back to it if you need to. And so, but when I went back to it, that's where it got really exciting because, you know, this was probably, you know, like a decade ago, okay? I come back into it, and I won't make a long story out of this, but I discovered ceramic. And, you know, if you go back a decade and you started slinging that word around ceramic, nobody knew that word. That word went in the USA. We'll make another video and go into how I discovered ceramic. But that came from Asia. You know, it led me to Asian countries. It led me to, you know, having to use films that were not of USA standard, like, you know, one ply stuff. It was a lot of extruded dye in the material. You know, the adhesives were different. You know, but I persevered and I figured out how to use that stuff, and, you know, I found out who was making good quality film and who wasn't, and we started using it in our tent business, and it was amazing how it gave us the competitive edge. You know, we doubled and tripled our profits. You know, I know, you know, you can get on social media and you can hear what people are saying about this and that, but, you know, on the battlefield where it counts, in my business, you know, with my customers and what they were paying me and how I was demonstrating the product, heat lamp demonstrations, all that was going down in real life. And nobody knew what ceramic was. They didn't even know how to combat me, you know, because I brought something to the table that nobody knew what it was or knew how to defeat it, you know, and I loved it. So that's what led me to this chair, because I thought if I could be so successful with it in a real business, why can't I distribute it? Again, that's what I started doing. I got into distribution. I thought I knew everything as an arrogant window tinter. You know, we all know we have some arrogance if we're window tinters. But I can tell you today, as a seasoned distributor, window tinter, that I don't know nothing. I mean, I still have a lot to learn. I'm enjoying myself learning. You know, we're making videos. You know, we're right here at the Rick and Ralph show. That's where we are.
In a nutshell, you got to this point by striving to be better or offering more.
I was one of the first ones to do one-piece back windows. I tried to figure out how to keep from butt seaming or overlap splicing. I tried to do it on defroster lines. See, our stories are sort of the same.
Our stories actually have a lot of parallels.
You know, everybody out there was selling dyed film and fighting each other with the same sword, and I found ceramic, you know, and I thought, wait a minute, this is actually cool. I mean, heat lamp demonstration compared to dye. Hey, I can win with this, you know. I made window tinting exciting again, you know, when I got back into it, and it's just carried over to where we are now. But, you know, yeah, man, that's why I'm here. That's why we're talking.
I wound up in this chair, or at this point, simply always trying to be a step ahead of my competition. When I first started, being a step ahead was as simple as splicing a window instead of overlapping it, making it look like it was one solid piece. After that, you know, I got ahead by actually doing one-piece back windows. So when I first got into the game, me being a step ahead had more to do with the quality of the work, which is a huge ingredient. I went for years, and that was a very productive business model, if you want to call it that, simply being better at the quality of the next person. Once I got to the point to where my quality was bar none, I was one of the best tinters around. It took me years to get to that point. Now I think I'm even better. But to get to that next level, one of the things that I noticed was there were people that did window tinting and they weren't as good as me. But I noticed that first. But the second thing I noticed was a lot of times there were people that weren't as good as me, but they were making more money. Well, how were they making more money putting out inferior work? You know, that was what I was thinking. How in the world is this guy making more money than me and I'm putting out a killer job? Branding, marketing, how do you sell yourself? So I came across ceramic probably about the same time as Ralph, I come across ceramic. Another sales rep comes into my doors and he's telling me about this film. You know, every one of them tells you how great, wonderful their film is, and then he gives me the price, and the price is ridiculous. I said, whoa, you know, I don't know what you're smoking, but I don't even want you to share it with me because your thought process is way off. And so he says, well, just give me 5 minutes, and if you don't, you know, if I don't leave you with something, then we'll end this conversation. So I said, okay, I'll give you 5 minutes. And he goes out to his car, he comes back in, and basically he tells me, pick out the best film I've got. And I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but I pick out the best film I've got. Now, how do I know what's the best film? Because the manufacturer told me it's the best, and another window tinter told me it lasted for a long time. That's how I knew I had the best film. Well, and that's how most people know they have the best film. Well, he brings out the first time I'd ever seen a heat lamp other than at a fried chicken place or something. He brings out a heat lamp. He's got a piece of glass. It looks like it's totally clear. He's got another piece of glass, and he says, hey, put your film on here. I said, okay. I didn't understand what he was getting at, so I put the film on there. He says, put your best film on there, the one that has the best performance. Put it on here. So we put it on there. He's got his film on a piece of glass, and he literally puts it in front of the heat lamp. And I think he let me do mine first. He put it in front of the heat lamp. I stuck it here. Mine felt hot. He's like, how much heat is that knocking out? And the total teaser on it, you know, was, I don't know what it was, but it didn't seem like it was matching that. And so he brings out a clear film. It happened to be V-Cool. He brings out a clear film, puts it in front of this thing. Okay, what's the gimmick here? What's the catch? I actually made him pull the film off of the glass because I thought the glass, I thought he was tricking me. I didn't know how, but I just knew something was happening.
I've been accused of selling trick glass.
And so I thought he was trying to trick me. So I actually made him remove the film from the glass so I could feel that the glass wasn't knocking out all this heat. And so after he'd done that, I was completely satisfied that there were films out here that if he could sell me, now he didn't sell me, so let me rephrase this. He did sell me on the concept of ceramic, but the price that he wanted was still too high and out of my league. But I decided if there's films like this that I have this type of reaction to, I was ready to pull out my wallet and start counting money out, but he was too high. So if he'd have been a little bit lower, I'd have counted out and said, yeah, give it to me. But it was too high. But at that point, I started hunting and searching for these films that knocked out all this heat. So I finally got my hands on some of it. Some of it was not as good. Some of the same type of films I'm sure you got your hands on. Some of it just wasn't as good as what we were used to using or what our definition of good was. We'll say that. It was mostly Asian. But the long story short is you're always trying to stay a step ahead. I feel like I've gotten to the point to where I'm not going to get very much better at my actual install techniques. My sales techniques, you can always improve on sales. You can always try something different and see what works, doesn't work in your area. But ultimately, the reason I'm here today is because I have always strived to be better than the next guy. But I'm going to take that a little bit further. I always strive to be better than any guy. I want to be the absolute best. Now, when you want to be the absolute best, you've got other people that have the same claims, and so that's when you butt heads a little bit. But I want to be the best, whether it be at installing the film, selling the film, the way I present myself to customers. At this point, I want to just simply know more about this industry. I want to know everything, how film's made, why it's made the way it's made. Why does one film have these characteristics and another one doesn't? And I'm
also, making the film?
Who's making the film? Why are they making it this particular way? Why can't you take this film and put it together with this film and have a perfect film? These are the things that I want to know. And I surround myself with people that are like-minded or that know more about specific aspects than I do. Now, myself and Ralph, there is a crap ton of stuff that we know that is very similar. There's also another area though. There are places that I know stuff that Ralph doesn't know, but there's places he knows stuff that I have no clue about. And so those are the people I want to be around. You know more than I do about something, I want to learn. And if I'm learning from you, I can only expect that you can learn something from me as well. That's how I got here.
Hey, we want to thank you guys for watching the Rick and Ralph Show. This is our first recorded episode. You're probably viewing us on YouTube or other social media places perhaps, but information that we need that we're going to use to make these shows in the future are going to come from you guys. So we would really appreciate if you comment below, tell us how you like our show, tell us your ideas on some topics that you would like for us to cover in our future shows, because we will take what you tell us very seriously. So this is the Rick and Ralph Show. This is Rick, I'm Ralph, and Rick, you had a couple things to say?
Yes, basically this show is for you if you're involved in the window film industry. Obviously there's places you can go to get information, to learn things. This can be closer to a one-on-one, even though we're in a, we're looking at you through a camera, you're looking at us through a screen, a monitor or something, maybe even your phone. We just want to be a little bit more personable with you and get you into the thought process of why window tinters do certain things.
That's it. This is the Rick and Ralph Show.
This is the first.
We can't wait to see which one we'll make next, and it's all going to come from you guys.
Yes, it is. In any case,
peace.
Y'all have a good one.